Hey everybody, Jake here with TrendSpider to go over the weekend analysis into the second full week of September. And we've got some cool charts to look at, especially as the broad markets really started to reverse last week. Starting with SPY, we'll do SPY, then the Qs, and then Bitcoin. But what you can see here on the Raindrop chart on the daily is essentially we bottomed out back on the 15th of August, and we've really moved up pretty decent in the last 15 trading days, and we actually formed a blue raindrop on Thursday, which is, I don't want to say concerning, but it's just something to watch after such a big move up in a short period of time, especially on the SPY. So, naturally, just because blue raindrops generally signal volatility to come, and we've had such a big move up, I'm thinking, maybe we pull back and retest this area that acted as resistance many different times in the past, let's say, month and a half. So, this is simply just to show you guys how you can utilize this TrendSpider platform. My guess is as good as yours. We could continue up and test new all-time highs in the coming week. But it is something to keep in mind with the blue raindrop. And again, the blue raindrop is when the VWAP for the first and the second half of the period equal each other, and you can see it's what we call a true doji or a true volume doji. So I do have an alert down here in case we do test this area. I'm thinking that it may not be exactly to this line, so I have put some sensitivity around this area to capture that margin of error in case we don't get exactly to this level. But then on the weekly candle, you can see that we really tested this area perfectly as well on this kind of secondary resistance here that's below this main one. And we've got 1, 2, 3, and then we had some areas where this acted as support, and now it's acting as resistance once again. So that will be another big area that we need to break through. Notice how we had a pretty big move down after we tested this here. So we'll just have to see what happens. But all in all, definitely a big move up in the last 2 weeks, which did look pretty bearish, especially with this big engulfing candle in on August 9th, the week of August 19th. But we did hold this area, and now we've got this kind of ascending wedge forming into the month of September. So that is SPY. We can look at the Qs now, and we've got a very similar chart here on the Qs. Something a little different here. You can see on the weekly, we did break through this previous area of resistance, which would be what some may consider the right shoulder here, or maybe, this did break through. Notice that we did close above that area, so that's something to keep in mind. One thing that I'm going to look for in case we just absolutely melt up is a test of this resistance area above. I'm just going to have a touch because I don't think we'll necessarily break through, but I do want to create some sensitivity around this area, and you can see here, this area has acted as resistance here, here, here. So that's why I've increased the sensitivity to this area. And now if we get anywhere within this purple area, I'll be alerted. And I want to be alerted whenever the 15-minute candle closes within this area. Resistance above is what we'll call it. And then we'll have this expire in 45 days. So now that the alert is created, I don't have to necessarily watch price action all of next week. If I'm really worried about the Qs, all I need to wait for is when this price action gets in this area, and then I'll be alerted whenever the 15-minute candle closes in this this resistance purple zone. So on the weekly chart, we can see, on the daily chart, you can see that we do not have a blue raindrop that's formed on the Qs. However, we did really find resistance right at this area here. And we did kind of gap up above this, what I'm going to call looks like a limbo line at this point, because we just jumped right over it, and this was resistance for the entire month of August. So the question is, do we continue up, or do we pull back to possibly test this area, similar to what we had on the SPY? We could do the same thing, create an alert at this area. Let's create it maybe for this. So whenever this price action touches, and on the 10-minute candle, whenever the 10-minute candle closes here, I'll be alerted. Not saying that we have to break down, but if we do, I don't have to be staring at the chart the entire time. Call this previous resistance. Have it expire in, say, 20 days. So now I'm all set up for possible areas below. And then we've got our area above to watch in case we do continue to break to the upside. In our last one, we'll take a look at Bitcoin for going into this weekend. And, we've got a pretty cool chart here considering, one, we had a big breakdown a couple weeks ago. We could see all this volume forming and we had a small continuation down. However, if we look at this volume was likely probably just stop loss selling going on. And that's where that big chunk of volume came when we broke down through this area. And then we actually broke right through, and we're getting closer and closer to the apex of this wedge, and we'll just have to see what happens. Now, on the weekly chart, let me pull up the MACD. You can see that we broke to the upside on the MACD in February and had a nice continuation up. Now we broke to the downside here, and last week it looked like we were going to test this area below, which has acted as support quite a few times. However, we reversed pretty hard, and now we are almost testing this descending triangle resistance above, and we'll just have to see if that area is tested in the next week, or if this is just a complete fake out once again. Bitcoin likes to really throw everybody for a loop, so we'll just have to see what happens. But for me, one thing that I definitely want to know is if the fast starts to really break down, let's say through 1,000, I can go to create alert, multi-factor alert. Oops, sorry, I cannot do it on Bitcoin. That's right. Okay, well, for this, I can create the multi-factor alert on the daily. So let's go to create alert on the daily. And let's say we want the candlestick pattern to be a blue raindrop. So we'll do raindrop doji. Because blue raindrops have definitely been something very volatile whenever Bitcoin kind of spits one out. So we'll do raindrop, expires in, let's say, full-time 45 days. And now we've created an alert. So whenever a blue raindrop forms, we will know there's probably some big-time volatility coming for Bitcoin. If we do a quick strategy test on the blue raindrop, and so what we're looking for here is we're looking for a raindrop. We're looking for a condition, candlestick pattern, raindrop doji. And let's see how that forms after 15 candles, 15 days. We'll test this, and you'll see that there's quite a bit of volatility here. The mean trade return on a blue raindrop is 17.89%, and we can see that on the chart every time this has occurred. So in this case, remove this. This is where the back test started, and you can see anytime we've had a blue raindrop, there's been some decent moves. Now, when we were kind of in the doldrums back here, we didn't have a ton of big moves. Everything was just flat. But you can see here, right before we broke down, there was a blue raindrop back here, and then we had that big meltdown. So once we did start to finally bottom here, we had a blue raindrop as well. Not sure why the blue raindrop looks like that, but the blue raindrop formed here. Then you had a 36% move up. You had another blue raindrop here, 48% move up. You had a blue raindrop here, 6% move up. So while we were in an uptrend, you can see that essentially, these have definitely been indicators of further price action to the upside. Now, if we start to become in a downtrend, these may be further indicators of a drop to the downside. Now, anything can happen, but that is one thing that I definitely want to know. When this forms a blue raindrop on the daily, I'll definitely know it's time to look at this more in more detail. So that is all I have for today. Hopefully you guys could see the value in TrendSpider and how you can utilize some of these different features. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Once again, this is not advice or anything as a buy or sell signal type of thing. This is simply just making your technical analysis more efficient and visualizing technical price and volume action in different ways with our raindrops. We will be doing a webinar on Sunday with Brian Shannon, who created the anchored VWAP, and we will be showing you guys how you can utilize the anchored VWAP in a blue raindrop setting. So here's a little teaser here. This is United Healthcare. This is a raindrop chart that I'll be going over a little more. But you can see here, what I did was I anchored these two raindrops. This is the raindrop on March 19th. This is the blue raindrop on April 24th. And you can see as we finally kind of bottomed out here and started to move up, these anchored VWAPs for the blue raindrop acted as support 1, 2, 3, a ton of times here. And then we finally broke down. And when we broke down through this area, that's when we knew it was really starting to move down big. Now what happens is another blue raindrop forms within the support. So I anchored the VWAP from here, and all you have to do is right-click, create Alpha Trends Anchored VWAP, and you can see how perfectly the price action respected this on August 30th before kind of moving back down a little bit. So these are some things we'll be talking about on the webinar. We'll be going over a lot more charts, examples, that type of thing, and Brian will also be showing how he does his thing with different not raindrop, but different anchored areas on the chart. So definitely sign up. You can go to TrendSpider.com, go to webinars. This is our partners page. If you go to webinars, you can select this anchoring the VWAP, register now, and you can check that out on Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And please let us know if you have any questions.